welcome to a special Dead by Daylight video. We're going to check out the recent Q&A that they just did after the 3.5 patch that had the update for the Doctor and the new Ruin. So I'm going to go through and going to give you my opinions on what they say as I listen to it. I might skip forward just a little bit if I don't have any opinion on anything in particular that they just said. I'll figure it out when I'm actually starting to edit it. But enough about that. I'm going to hit the play button, and we're going to see exactly what we have in store for us. What?
Oh, great. My Hex. It's been ruined. Hex Ruin is a teachable for the hack. In December 2016, you were rad. Then everybody started overusing you.
Overusing?
Many years later, they made you into poo. Then again, you weren't really that great of a perk, as it didn't really bother good players, so it's probably okay that you got reworked. Hex Ruin, you've been ruined, and you'll never be the same again. Hex Ruin, you've been ruined, and you'll never be used again. But seriously, you would start a match and then like after a minute it exploded and then you were left with nothing, so I don't see the point. New Hex Ruin, you cause the jids to slow. However, when I use you, I can't kick no more. So should I even bring perks like Pop, Overcharge, or Surge? I mean, I can't really use them until they destroy the new Ruin, so I'm a little bit confused. And yes, I know Surveillance and new Ruin make a good combo, but if Ruin gets destroyed...
Oh, what now?
Hex Ruin, you've been ruined, and you'll never be the same again. Hex Ruin, you've been ruined, and
This is
you'll
just...
never be used again.
Jesus. It's almost like paid
Hello.
advertisements for the...
Oh, hi there.
Hello,
Devs.
everyone.
Hello. Oh man, that song
and
really
their thoughts
slaps.
on it.
Yes.
I
So,
was kind of saying, like, what if we just ended the stream
Yeah.
right there?
well, that was the Q&A for today. Bye, guys. Okay, so first off, thank you to Sabination, one of our Fog Whisperers, to allow us to show this awesome piece. Go check his YouTube channel. He has a lot of really fun stuff over there. All right, guys. Some people think there's someone in the locker. Don't touch it.
Oh, sorry.
It's gonna break.
No, there was almost someone in the locker, but he's actually beside the locker, off screen.
Yes.
You'll see
he's
him
get-
later.
you-
That is his hand.
You'll see. Yeah. Okay. So
We'll get there.
First off, hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for the mods, the CMs in the chat. I am Not Queen, lead community manager on Dead by Daylight, and with me today I have.
Hi, I'm Louis McLean.
So hashtag Blame McLean. That's him.
I did it.
And
And I'm Justin Banks, one of the product managers on DBD.
all
and
right.
do we introduce Ethan?
Well, we will introduce him. Well, I'm pretty sure you guys know Ethan, but we will introduce him later when he comes in, because right now it's a bit awkward.
Yeah.
Ethan is the hand behind Justin, right there. So, Louis, what are you doing on the project?
So I'm a gameplay programmer. I'm also in the live balance team.
Awesome.
Working on balance updates and killer reworks and all that kind of stuff.
That's great.
Whenever I watch these, I
So
wish they would
the
just
questions
script
are
some of
coming
it.
from
Like, just
the
the stuff
forums.
they could
So we
skip
always
over.
have a post open a week or so before we do these Q&A to gather all your questions. There will be
Gather all the
questions about Ruin,
questions,
but we
you know,
will not start with this
Pick and choose
yet.
which ones we actually
around.
want to use.
So
because they're
stick around
easier.
because actually
use
we're
anything
going to
that
start
actually
with
makes points.
Justin and what you're working on. Well, first off, wait a minute. I'm
Wait a
going way too fast
Yeah,
into
yeah.
Q&A.
Yeah, I
I'm
was
a
like,
bit
you
stressed
want me
out
to
because
start
like
now?
we
Yeah.
have a lot of questions today. But first off, we have announcements, reminders. First, we're going to be at PAX East. There will be no booth. It's going to be a party, drink, food, fun. Much
So-
but more detail to come soon. TM. For the announcement for Justin. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so for some other announcements, so we have an update that released this week. So with that, we have our Lunar New Year event, Scarlet Swarm. So that's currently live until February 4th.
In case you hadn't logged into the game
Some
already.
cool
and seen it.
in-game theming going on in there. We have some new login rewards for it as well. So for the first week, if you log in, you get some really cool charms. Second week, if you log in, you get some reskinned items that are really nice. A hat for Dwight, shirt for Nia, and I believe a weapon for Hillbilly.
Rat Hammer.
The rat, is that the name?
I don't know. That's what I like to call it. I can't wait to get it.
You could call it that. That's totally cool. And then we also have, of course, Tome 2 for the archives that is actually live. So I can't believe it's already the second one.
Our
'cause
new
this is
battle
blowing my
pass,
mind.
everybody. Our second battle pass.
And you guys are definitely impressing us with how quickly you are running through all these challenges.
All right. So we're going to talk a little bit more in detail with the questions for the first archive, actually, and where we're going with the second one.
We have one more announcement here on the list.
Yeah, I was going to say this one. So we have a hotfix coming. We're not going to give detail on any fixes yet for today because we have to
Why
validate
the fuck
them.
would you even mention a
But,
goddamn hotfix?
there's a
You're not going
hotfix
to tell us
coming
what it is.
for-
Hey,
for
there's a
this-
hotfix coming. Really? What is
after
it? What's
this
in it?
patch, basically.
We're not going to tell you.
Before
The
we
fuck
go
was
to
the
the
point in telling
Q&A,
us?
there's a lot of questions that we're probably not going to go in detail to.
Talking about the
In-
known issues.
Known
this thing is
issues.
broken.
Exactly. So we have a list of known issues. McLean's going to go over them.
Real quick.
Obviously, those are known issues. There are other than that, but we
Yeah.
can't cover everything today.
Yeah.
So
Some commonly asked questions, things that have come up. Decisive strike. People have been talking about. Yeah, there's an
Against
issue with
Doctor.
decisive strike.
Yeah.
So if you guys are curious, what's happening here is there's a problem with the
We're not gonna go over
insane skill
these.
checks that the
Let's go
doctor
over
can give
these.
you. You know, they're all crazy, they're offset, they're shaking,
Jesus.
and unfortunately, they also make it so that you can't trigger decisive strike with them. That's
Oh,
sorry about
darn.
that. The fix will be coming. We know the issue. There's an issue with rank achievements unlocking randomly.
yes.
This
This
happened
one
to me,
is-
You won't be
actually.
banned.
No.
This
It's
happened
not
to
your
me.
fault.
I actually got some kind of like
We also have an increase in the
Uber
rank
killer
update
rank
error.
something
So some of you may be seeing that.
unlocked.
We
And I-
are on it. We know it. We're
that
looking
was
at it.
while it was in a
And
loading screen
some issues were
for a
found with
survivor
Badham
game
Preschool,
that
some
I was
assets on
playing.
Badham Preschool. The
So that was
map has
interesting.
been temporarily disabled. It'll be back.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus. You just fixed that
so
fucking
those
map.
are the non-issues from the previous update.
You just
we
fixed
have
that
ongoing
map.
issues
How
and
the fuck did
discussions
you
that
mess
a
it
lot of
up
people
already?
are mentioning in like everywhere. So optimization, dedicated server, sound issue, and matchmaking. So I'm going to go over them a little quickly because there's some news that are coming for matchmaking very, very shortly. We're preparing a change, and you're going to start seeing some change actually in the upcoming weeks.
The
So
changes, they're
stay
just gonna
tuned
get
on
rid
that
of the
for, we're
ranks,
preparing a
so you can't
technical,
ever
more
see them
technical
so they
blog
can
post
see
about
it.
it. So
You
a
don't
lot
have
of
to see
changes
how
for
bad their
matchmaking
matchmaking is.
coming. Then the sound issues, I actually had a talk with our sound guys just before the stream to ask, is there a reason why, like, every update we have some sound issues that are coming in, and once we fix them, and then some new ones are, so basically
reason the
sound
killers
is,
can't hear
so
jack
this is my
squat.
explanation of what I got from the whole thing. Sounds are linked to a lot of things in the game. For example, animations. So when animations are changed, sometimes the sounds don't trigger at the right time, or they don't trigger at the right frame. So that's why sounds are a little bit funky sometimes. So when we make changes to other things that are linked to sounds. So they are working really hard on trying to, you know, pinpoint where the issue come from, and your feedback actually matters a lot on that one.
The more
we
precise,
changed-
the more precise, the better.
For example, the TVs on the new map, on the rework of Larry's,
Yeah.
were pushing out a sound that was really, really high frequency
Hmm.
that older people cannot hear.
That's right.
And we've had a lot of reports on that one, like, what the?
Don't make me feel old.
So they
Don't
changed
do that to
it.
me.
Sound
Please
guys are
don't.
boomers.
Yes.
God.
That's, he said that. I, just gonna be
This guy's
Fred at
supposed to
your
be
desk
I
when you
know.
come back.
Fred's not happy with me now.
All right, so matchmaking, we went over sound issues, optimization, and dedicated servers. So this one is a major thing. A lot of people are asking about, like, what's happening with optimization, what's happening with dedicated servers. So basically, both of these things are really an ongoing process. There's a lot of work that is done in the background that you might not see right away, that are not even mentioned necessarily in patch notes because it's so technical that you might not see it. But every update, we're updating some things about dedicated servers and optimization. When there are more major changes, that's where you're going to see them in the patch notes. If we feel like you're going to see a big difference, that's where we're going to put it. So yeah,
I think you got it.
I think that was the news for today. All right, let's go to the Q&A because we have a ton of questions.
Yeah, let's get through my stuff, and then we can get Ethan on screen and away from behind
Getting
my shoulder, because it's creeping me out now.
I don't know how many Ruin question. I think we have 3 pages. All right, so let's go with the archive question. So starting with Violet Cherries. What were the takeaway from the first tome and Rift, and how this affected the second tome?
Oh yeah, so this, I have basically a full page, I think, of answers on this one, because it's a lot. So a lot of our takeaways that we had is that the completion time was a lot harder and longer than we had actually intended. So we wanted it to be very fair for players. Like, if you would finish all of the challenges in Tome 1, then you would reach the end of the Rift. The times didn't really end up actually syncing. We had matchmaking that came into play. Whenever we change that, it's a little hard to predict sometimes what will actually happen. So that caused some issues where you would have to wait a bit, and that is obviously added into the amount of time that we are expecting you to take to finish the Rift. Then there was also the issue of challenge difficulty. So we've learned from that part as well. I believe it was when we released level 2. Right away there was a master challenge of getting 2 safe unhooks in the end game. And as soon as this went live, we thought, oh my god, what did we do?
Mistakes were made.
Yeah, so we rushed pretty quickly to reduce that to 1 and take it as an opportunity to kind of just drop some challenges all across the board, make them just a bit more fair. And then that was an approach we kind of took to levels 3 and 4 as well, a little bit more behind the scenes. And we've taken this going even further into Tome 2, kind of just trying to actually balance everything out so that there's nothing unexpected. Like when you go from level 1 to 2, this time there might be a slight increase, but then that's roughly all you're going to see. You'll stay around that same difficulty for levels 3 and 4. In the original tome, we wanted it to feel like they were almost difficulty levels, but I found it was just really hard to get that across, and players didn't enjoy it. I think we didn't enjoy it either. We found it was a real grind once we got around to actually playing it.
It wasn't that hard.
We learned from hearing from you guys. We learned
to
from
notice that it was a difficulty
so we're trying
spike.
to implement that more
it
with
was
Tome
the
2.
difficulty spiked to the point where
On
most
top
people
of all
couldn't
this,
fucking do it.
We've actually done
You'd have to
some,
farm to do
changes
it.
for that, the
You'd have to
layout
have
of
cooperative
the
killers
challenges in
and
the tome.
survivors to
We
do
noticed a lot
some
of
of
people were
those.
having trouble at specific
Technically,
master
you could get it
challenges or
done
other
just by
ones that
playing the
felt
game, but
really
you'd have to play the game and
unenjoyable.
hope for a goddamn miracle.
So in addition to making a lot more dynamic and varied types of challenges, we've also placed a lot of the master challenges out of the way. So if you've already seen level 1 of Tome 2, you know this. You know it's a lot more of the normal challenges from the beginning to end that are the ones you do over the series of different trials. And the master challenges, where it's maybe do something as a doctor or as David in the period of one match, those are off to the side, and you can do those as you want.
Well, that means it also doesn't block you from finishing it if you don't have the character.
It doesn't, and that was really important to us because we know we want to start using more different characters because a lot of them have very interesting stories, but we don't want to block anybody who does not have these characters.
Well, that actually is a good segue for the next question.
For perks,
Oh yeah,
I'm
Lumi knows
guessing.
what's up.
From Pig and Run. How were the character chosen for Tome 2? And by the way, chat, don't worry, we're getting to Ruin at some point.
It's coming.
Okay, it's coming.
Is it just endless questions about Ruin in there?
Good guess.
That's
I
yes,
think you
that's
knew
it.
the answer to that.
think?
Okay. So for Tome 1, since that
And-
was the start of all this,
And a star bomb comment.
thank you. Someone recognized. Man, love it. So for Tome 1, we tried to pick some characters that were our oldest, hence why we went with Trapper and Claudette to really focus on. And then the rest of the ones that got outfits in the Rift, also some of our oldest original characters. We wanted to really give these guys some love.
Find out where the
As
mic
we're
is.
moving forward with Tome 2, you'll notice we picked kind of an interesting mix. So I think David is old, Huntress is old. They were actually in the same one. Jane is relatively new, Spirit is relatively new. But we wanted to pick characters that we thought could have some interesting stories to tell. So moving forward, we're
Apparently
going
you
to
haven't
try
followed
to be
enough the
picking
Spirit
characters that we
story
think
with
have
2
something
DLCs
interesting that
essentially
players want
dedicated
to learn
it.
about, can have interesting outfits, interesting experiences based on their abilities. And since this might mean that obviously we'll do a mix of free and DLC characters, we're going to make sure that we make these characters as easily accessible to you guys as possible. So they'll be ones that are always available in iridescent shards, and we're trying out right now a sale on some of these characters. So 30% off the Orixel cost of Doctor, Jane, and Spirit. So you can get a
Or
head
you could
start,
just make them
get these
available for
characters,
play
do their
during the
challenges,
tome.
enjoy them. I'm one of those guys that likes
Crazy
Spirit, so
idea.
that's probably not going to get me any love.
Just don't
Well,
make it
that's
so
okay.
that they
Whoa.
can unlock the perks. Make
That's a
the
bold
You
statement.
do the WASP so
character
great,
available.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Or just make the character available.
All right.
and don't let them earn the
No
perks
great
or
segue on
put
that
in
one.
blood points,
Okay,
right?
Sorry.
I'm disappointed. No,
Sorry.
that's okay.
It's okay.
Jiminy Crow is asking, will future tomes be focused around the 4 character as well? I think you kind of like brushed that one already.
I kind of did. So we started off in Tome 1 kind of focusing on the 2 characters because we also had the continuation of the Hallowed Blight story, and then we started off with the Observer. So I think the format going forward right now is focusing on 4 characters, 2 survivors, 2 killers, and really expanding on their backstories. So like I said, there's the current plan, subject to change. Obviously, at some point we will run out of characters. We can only make so many. And so it's really wherever the narrative team thinks that they want to go and how they want to develop the world of DBD.
On the gameplay side, it's also a little bit helpful for us because we don't have so many people cramming onto the same killer. Like we saw some really fun stuff on Trapper stats during the first drift. So
Yeah, everyone was like, well, why is everyone
Yeah, and
why
those
is there so much
stats-
Trapper usage?
Oh, well, just
Okay, it was kind of expected, right? So you'd use Trapper
and
if
then
you
just
want to
say
trap
these are
people.
the things that you shouldn't
Why is
go by
Polytech
these,
used
but
even
you
more
should go
than
by
normal?
stats.
Like, okay, it's our fault.
Peanuts is really
All right.
super
And
notorious for
Ricky
that.
Rick is asking, will the archives ever focus on maps like they do characters?
So this one I thought was actually pretty interesting because I love our maps, and I find that when the art team makes them, they have a lot of cool history that does go into them, especially the focal points. Like the hospital rework, like taking a look at that, you can imagine some twisted stuff has gone down there. But right now, I kind of want to leave it, or we want to leave it more in the player's hands. So like if we have a story about a character, we want you to be able to select the character yourself, go in. But when it comes to killers, we have more of an opportunity to really tie their realms and their levels into them. So I think that's something that we tried to do a little bit with Trapper in Tome 1. Maybe in future tomes we'll do this a bit more, but it's really all... Like, there's tons of possibilities. So I don't want to say no to anything, but I don't want to make any promises.
Yeah, that sounds like the safe way to go.
Maybe.
All right. Well, I think that was all for the archive questions. So we're gonna jump into the spicy stuff right here.
Cool.
Let me,
Thank you.
Yeah, let me give my seat to Ethan.
Yeah, thank
It's
you
gonna
for
be an awkward
joining us
little,
today,
little
Justin.
shuffle here.
thanks, Justin.
And
See you guys.
are those your cookie?
They can be my cookies if you let them.
I think they are mine, and I just like never took them off. You can take one if you want, but you can take the whole thing away from
No,
me.
I'm just taking one.
This way. Oops. It doesn't look good on camera.
Yeah, that's. Get the thing off.
I'll take them both.
Put the cookie down.
Would you like your papers?
Leave me one.
We'll just-
They're my cookies.
Papers, please. All right.
All right,
Professional
awesome. So, thank you, Justin. Professional, yes, thank you, Pete. Awesome. Ethan, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Ethan.
Hello,
Hello.
Ethan. Ethan, what do you do on the project?
I'm live designer, so anything that has already shipped and needs to be tweaked, that's up to me.
Okay, just to address something, why am I standing up? Because I saw a couple of questions about it.
Yeah, why are
I'm
you
very short, and when I sit on a chair, I'm like behind the computer.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable also. It's like more.
We'll get you a booster seat next time.
No, I don't wanna. All right. All right. So, ruin questions.
Okay.
We have a lot of them. Then we have doctor questions.
Let's
Then
do
we
it.
have misc questions, and we have 40 minutes to go. So we're gonna try to make it happen and answer as much as we can in 40 minutes. But sadly, someone needs the room after, so we're gonna have to cut it at the right time.
Okay.
So, let's go.
Did you say
I'll just tell one
missed questions?
Wait, what?
Did you say missed
Misc.
questions?
Do you need to
Missed.
know
Okay,
this?
I was like,
You're on a
fog
fucking time
champ.
schedule, and this is the thing that you're going to waste time
There's one
with.
little funny thing about when I was working on Ruin. The word ruin is in the beginning of the lyrics to, all right, stop
Oh,
what
yeah.
you're doing. because I'm about to ruin the image and the style that you're used to. I look funny, but you're making money, see? So your world, hope you're ready for me to get around. I'm the new. Anyway.
I think you should talk with Samination. Maybe we should
This
get
is
you
exactly
a
what we
little,
tuned in to see.
you know.
Pig
While
roast.
he was working
All
on
right.
Ruin.
Sweet.
While
Let's
he
talk
was
about Ruin.
figuring out
On
how to
this,
fuck
let's
it
go.
over.
So we're jumping right away in the questions. Killer Monkey 236 is asking, what was the thought process behind the Ruin change?
We didn't like
Well,
Survivors.
that was
New
it
Survivors
started
being
back
frustrated.
last July. We knew we wanted to do something with Ruin because the old I'm going to say old and new Ruin. The old version of Ruin had very passive gameplay. So if you were running the perk, it just did stuff and you didn't have to interact with it, and we didn't feel that was that exciting. We also have an inconsistency in the power of Ruin from moment to moment because of the random nature of skill checks.
Hold on. Just off the top of my head, perks that you don't actually have to do anything, no interaction really whatsoever to make the perk work. So let's go with Dead Hard. I mean, really all you have to do is sprint and hit the button. You don't really have to wait for anything. Don't have to do anything other than be hurt. Let's see, No Mither. No Mither just turns on. Unbreakable. You have to really do anything, just hold a button. Just hold a button. Anything else? Oh, I know. Let's just go with Sprint Burst. You don't have to really do anything. Just hit your sprint button. It works. Lithe. You're already doing what you're supposed to be doing. Vault. Just keep going. You don't really have to interact with any of these meta perks yet. And yet, none of them are actually being looked at.
If you did a generator and you got no skill checks, Ruin had no effect. But if you got like 10 skill checks, it hurt really badly. So we wanted to even that out. We also wanted to help with the onboarding of new players, and we observed that
See?
veteran players didn't really get affected that much
They
by
go
Ruin.
through Ruin.
Yeah,
So
they just ignore it because they can do the great skill
yeah,
checks.
one complaint was it gets, so we're talking old Ruin.
Yeah.
One complaint was it gets cleansed too early, and that's for any expert really at the moment. And the second complaint was also, well, good players are just running through Ruin like it's nothing, so they don't really go for cleansing.
Yeah,
And yet it was
simultaneously
used in
too weak
80% of
and
top
too
ranked
strong.
games.
Yeah,
That was kind of weird.
Yeah. So starting with these observations, where did we go after that?
Well,
There were a bunch of different possibilities, I think, that we
Here's some
looked at.
gameplay.
Like we
Here's
knew
a
we
loop
wanted
of
to keep
gameplay
it
that has nothing to do with
generator related, something to help slow generators under some kind of condition.
yep. And a few of the
Which it
things that
doesn't.
we tried ended up
Stay on
even
a
more OP than anything else we had in the game. The original version
is
of
not.
the one that just shipped not only had the bonus regression, but it also had a blanket reduction to repair speed across the board, and that was
was too much.
ridiculous. So
Yeah.
we found something that sits sort of in the middle of the suggestions that we have, and we're fairly confident that it's where it should be at the moment.
You're retarded.
All right. So knowing that,
You're
we're going to
retarded.
go
You
to
had
the
to play
other
in the most
questions,
amazing vacuum ever,
Hikenchi.
where you
I
make
have no idea if I said
house
that
rules
properly.
where no
Sounds
one can
good.
cleanse
Will
totems. You can't
other
cleanse totems
slowdown perks see
because
changes
that would
as well?
get rid of my perk.
Well, if we take, for example, a game where you have a lot of slowdown
Very
perks,
rarely does
it can be
any hex
the
last to the end
gameplay
of
ends
the
up
game.
feeling kind of stale because they spend an awful lot of time just M1ing on the generators. For
Aw.
example, if you have somebody running the old
It's
Ruin,
almost as if
Hop
you
Ghost
designed the
Weasel,
game that
Dying
way.
Light, and Thanatophobia, making any progress on generators it's just painfully slow. So over time, our goal is to make these perks less obnoxious when you run them together, but individually we still want them to be useful. For example, the new Ruin
He just said
locks
they're
out being
nerfing
able to pick
slowdown
generators,
perks.
so
He
it
said
doesn't
in the future
synergize
we're
at
going to be
all
nerfing these
with, say,
slowdown
Pop Goes the
perks. So
Weasel.
if you
Right.
use
Now,
them
if you're worried that
together,
Ruin will get
they
cleansed
don't
early, and you
they
take Pop
don't
Goes the Weasel,
inconvenience
the
survivors,
survivors trade
as
one
much.
for the other.
Right.
So that's
Holy
that's a way you
shit.
use it as a sort of insurance policy.
Do
So
you
we're seeing a lot of
understand the
people running-
bias that you
already
spit when
running
you
Ruin,
spit it?
New Ruin with surveillance. That was
Yeah.
that was something.
That's a pretty potent combo.
yeah.
But
One of the
you know,
early-
you can always cleanse it, so you're
Yes.
not stuck with that the whole game. but
It's
a
almost
pretty
as if you could have done
interesting
that with
combo.
old Ruin.
It popped up and one of the testers came up and said, should Ruin work with surveillance? And we thought, oh my god. And we played a couple times and thought, yeah,
It's pretty cool.
it's pretty cool. We'll leave that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go to Luca's question.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
Even though
Luca,
surveillance for any other perk
2211?
requires that you kick the generator.
Have you considered making Ruin a non-hex perk? Because that one came back a lot in the
Yes,
feedback.
we did see that a lot.
We had a whole thread, which, by the way, we want to say like congrats to the people on the forum because that thread was absolutely amazing. Of like, okay, what will you do instead of this? And there was a lot of things that we picked out of this post. And also, people were very, very good at staying civil, and
Yes, it was
that was
great.
impressive. And the designer actually took the time to read all of those.
Yep.
A lot of us do spend a lot of time on the forum reading stuff, and
Yeah,
so we like
absolutely.
it when a constructive thread happens.
Yeah, it's really helpful actually to see outside perspectives, because when you're stuck in the middle of something, sometimes you don't see everything.
It's hard to
So,
stay
anyways,
civil
that
though when
suggestion
the
of Ruin
developers
not
come in
being
and just say,
X.
"Well,
What's your take on it?
we're
We
more
considered
worried
it,
about the frustrations of
and
this
it
new
didn't seem
single
right.
side
First,
instead of
all
everyone
3
else."
of the hex perks that first shipped are hag perks, so hag perks need to say hex perks. And if it stays a hex perk, we can keep its power level up. Like if we made it not a hex perk, it would probably have to regress at a lower speed
Yeah.
than it does now. So, yeah,
It would have to exactly. It would have to be weaker than it is now.
it would have to be.
I don't think people would
No, it
enjoy
doesn't.
gameplay with this
I could give
type
you a
of thing
complete
that
design right
cannot
now
be
that
dealt
would
with.
stop that.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to talk about it later in one of our 10
The
next
thread
Ruin
that they were
questions.
talking about, I made several suggestions.
Groot, dude,
How you
Yep.
could change
have
it.
you
Not
thought
let it
about
be a hex
keeping
perk.
the no great skill check progress part of Ruin?
Mm-hmm.
So those are mostly like all the suggestions we've seen on
Other stuff
forums
on
and other places.
I think
Yep.
when we were talking about it, like of the suggestions, people said like, what if Ruin's not good enough as it is? What could be done? That was probably one of the suggestions we liked the best.
Yeah, absolutely. That,
Yeah.
that is a good suggestion. So if we find out that the
Yeah.
current Ruin isn't living up
If we
to the
found
amount
out,
of power
we had a
we think
whole
it should have,
PTB
that's
for
something
this
we're
ruin,
considering
a
adding.
whole test build
So
for this
there's
like
ruin.
a bit of a-
opening
Everybody
for
said
the
it was
future
shit.
at
Yeah.
So we
reviewing and
launched it that
re-adding
way.
and readjusting.
I wouldn't say
Absolutely.
anything's like set in stone here yet.
Nothing's set in stone. It's a
Yeah.
live game. Everything's bound to
Yeah,
change,
Then
right?
maybe you
Yeah,
shouldn't
plus,
have
I
launched
guess
it.
one of the other advantages of this change is that it's got a hint of nostalgia for the old Ruin without
does not.
like all of the negatives that were necessarily associated with
It
it.
has no
All
nostalgia.
right, and
for Ruin.
also
Not
I want to
one
add
bit.
one thing. We've learned from our past mistakes. Looking at you, Freddy release,
Oh.
where we changed things back really, really quickly, and as a team, we realized that it is actually a good thing to leave changes a little bit longer before we readjust, unless it's like blatantly
Like not working.
like not working. And basically, we want to give the community the possibility to either find an alternative to Ruin or new builds, or even trying the new Ruin and trying it with another
And
combo. We've
notice
seen
that
a lot of
not
people
once
get very creative
in
already.
any of their
so
answers
it's
did they
interesting
say,
to see where,
well, we know it was in
that meta will
80% of the
shift.
game, so we
Yep.
wanted to look at what
Right.
the reason
Then
was
power
that it
ups.
was in 80%
Can you
of the
remove
top
the
ranked
notification
games.
survivor get when Ruin is
Nope.
active?
They don't care about the
Um,
reason.
the
They
hex-
know the
the
reason.
hex perk
They
system
just
as a
don't want to
whole
fix it.
notifies people as soon as a hex perk
They
has
need Band-Aid
an
perks.
effect
That's what
that's
Ruin
noticeable.
was a Band-Aid perk.
And so if we were to hide it for Ruin, it would be inconsistent with the rest of the hex perk system. So that's
It was
that's
a
something that
Band-Aid
we
perk to,
probably wouldn't do.
Yeah.
Gen
I mean, I
times.
think the question also kind of
And they
implies
removed it.
what if we didn't notify people about hexes at all? And I'm not so into that idea. I think we would like to give survivors information to be able to play,
Yeah.
and that's part of it.
Plus,
and the more we
tons
put
of
on the side
stuns,
of
blinds,
hex perks being chancy
free
and dicey,
getaways,
the more power
ways to
we
get
can
gens
give them.
done faster with items and perks,
All right.
free
I'm Leslie
flashlight
Kettleman.
blinds, free escapes with keys and hatches.
Are you looking
to give
into
survivors all
changing the
these
base
things.
generator repair time?
a good
So
question.
we're going over like a lot of the suggestions that were thrown around.
Well, we're looking at possible changes to toolboxes and how much repair bonus you get out of those. We have nothing set in stone on those yet. But we're looking at that. The base generator time is probably not going to increase because asking survivors to sit for, let's say, 120 seconds holding M1 if
There's-
they're unmodified.
Yeah, there's already M1 simulator memes.
Yeah, like the length of the match is definitely an important metric,
Yep.
and like we're definitely listening to people's feedback.
Now, hold on. I'm going to say this right now. They have come so far, but they haven't considered altering the way that survivors interact with generators. This is something that's incredibly. It's befuddling. That's the one word I'm going to say. It's an amazing word. I don't get to say it too much, but it's befuddling that they haven't considered that. Now, just off the top of my head, I'm going to say this. M1 to interact with the generator. Your character interacts automatically. You hit skill checks with your spacebar, but those aren't the only skill checks. There are also A, S, W, D skill checks. So you're not just holding M1. You can let go of the M1 button once you start interacting. You have to hit M2 or just hit M1 again to stop interacting with the generator. But while your character is interacting with the generator, you're having to hit A, W, S, D spacebar to make these skill checks to, actually repair the generator. It's an interactive thing. It can go the same amount of time, and you're not just sitting there holding M1. You can hire me at any time, Behavior. Anytime. I'm ready. I'll help you make your game better. Let's keep going.
Talk about like, oh, our matches this much of the time feel like they go too fast, and we're keeping an eye on like why is that, what's going on. I think there are more interesting things to address than just
what's going on
how
is
long you have to sit and do a generator.
Is that your
I think the two
killers?
main
They have zero
takeaway
momentum
from
in
the
the,
whole
in the
Ruin,
beginning. They can chase one person
discussions,
at a time, and multiple
was
survivors can be on
mainly,
multiple generators
from
at
the
the exact
community
same time.
standpoint.
If you don't
map
get that
size,
basic concept,
as well
I don't know what
as,
to tell
so,
you.
and we have map questions later, as well as early game pressure. So there was a lot of concern about like if you take Ruin or you change Ruin and you take away the early game pressure. So I'm extending the question to
That's
you.
fair. I think actually there are already other perks in the game that do a pretty good job of affecting
Careful
the beginning of the game. There are some other tools I think
No.
you might want to check out.
No.
Yeah, certainly
They're
are.
talking about one of the plagues perks.
Okay,
that,
so
like, stops you
to
from
kind of
touching
segue on
three
the whole
of the
toolbox
furthest
change and everything.
generators.
I think you kind
That's
of
not
answered
enough.
the
Because
question
they
already,
spread
but
out
let's go
anyway.
over
They
it.
very,
Yeah.
very
Jet the
rarely
Waffle
do good
Cat is
survivors stay
asking,
as
will
close
toolboxes
as
be
generators.
changed in the near
Because they know that's where you're
future?
going to run to.
Yes, we are looking at some fundamental changes to how toolboxes work and their values. We don't have anything set in stone yet. It's things that we're working on, so we can't really talk about details at the moment.
You should, so
But
you can get feedback
it
now.
is
Feedback
a
and
system
ideas
that
from
we
your
want to
community.
revisit,
You should
and
literally stop
the
and just say,
changes will be announced
here's
as
what we
soon as
want.
we
We
can.
want your ideas for toolbox changes.
I'm excited.
I am too. It's more fun.
All right. Easy 5K.
Easy 5K.
Easy 5K
Oh, God.
is asking, are there any plans to adjust Survivor Generator perks accordingly as well?
Decent question.
Yes.
Yes. So we have several survivor generator perks. For example, leader and prove thyself.
Not that one.
Not that one.
That one, not that one. That one doesn't do that anymore. But yes, the rest of them, prove thyself and so on.
Definitely prove thyself.
Yes.
These are not really used a whole lot, despite being on free characters.
They
Perks
are
that
now
on free
that New
characters
Ruin
tend to be
can
used more
like
for
make you
obvious reasons.
do the since you can do generators faster and you don't
so
have
we
to
don't really
like
consider them to be a problem.
screw
If you look
over
at
yourself
this is not happening in
with,
resilience. They're also
the
not
newest
commonly
Ruin with
used.
bad skill checks
and
and
they're in
everything
the
like
general
that.
perk pool, so you don't even
I
need
guarantee
to
you're going to see
rank up a
leader
character to
and
have
prove
access
thyself
to
just
them.
crank nonstop
So at
because
the
the more
moment,
survivors can just jump on, they can all get prove thyself,
those
they can
will
all get
probably be
leadership,
staying as
bam.
well.
Those
And
generators
I think
are going to fly.
we've been careful lately
It'll be
about
the new meta,
survivor
guarantee you.
perks that would give you too much speed on generators.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the majority of the feedback I've been hearing has specifically been about toolboxes. I hear about like, oh, the squad rolled in and they all put their commodious toolboxes in. And it's like, okay, we're listening about the toolboxes.
All right. Gotlos is asking if there are plans for a secondary objective.
I love that question.
Yes,
I
because
also don't
that's
know the
word.
also
There are
coming back
none
a lot.
because
Yes.
they don't want to have to do more work.
Oh, I see. Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
just have terrible reading comprehension. No, it's a great question. So like in the short term, it's unlikely that you're going to see some kind of like brand new secondary objective pop up. Which probably
Totems
is
or
more
secondary
likely is more focused
objectives?
on sort of the existing side objectives that we have. The totem system for one. There's a lot of like a
almost
big
like I
spotlight
didn't
actually
see
currently, I would say, on totems with like the change to ruin.
Very big spotlight.
Yeah, like the fact that, for example, no one escapes death is a pretty popular and powerful perk, which really encourages a totem hunt. And what we did a little while ago, right? We increased the rewards for destroying totems, and I foresee perhaps more iteration on the totem system in the short term in terms of like what are we seeing for a secondary objective. I don't have any specifics, so as much as I would love to just like spitball about totems live here on twitch.tv with all of you guys,
Let's
we'll have
not
to
if we
move
don't
on.
have a final plan.
Yeah, let's move on to the next thing. It's just
Yeah.
like we're thinking
Because
about
it's
it.
always dangerous. We tried in the past to share,
Yeah.
you know, like details on the development process, and then we realized it was even
Yeah.
harder.
Little breaks my heart more than talking about something really awesome and then it's interpreted as a promise and then it can't happen and then everybody feels bad.
Yeah. So,
That's when you treat your players like adults and
I
just say,
have
look,
no idea
we're
which name
working on
it
trying
is,
this.
so I'm
Not
sorry.
guaranteed that it'll
I'm
make
pretty
it
sure
into
it's going to
game,
be
but
on
we're trying to see what we can
the
do.
screen. Are you looking to improve some of the weaker perks as well?
Yes.
It's a BS
BS.
Beast
Beast
K777.
Yeah.
But there was a second name, so I was
Yes,
like,
and
that's a
no
lot.
cannibal.
It wouldn't surprise me if many people wrote in to say, "Hey,
The
what
same
about
question.
all of these perks that I have in my list and I never use them because I don't see the use of them?" So we
Because
heard.
they're garbage.
We heard. We have a list of several low usage perks, and I have the list with me right here.
So Pebble, I'm the only one apparently using it. So there's one
Yeah.
person. No.
Your usage by itself has skewed the stats so much.
Yes.
It's like right up there. Way to go, Gab.
Yeah, so we'll never change it because as long as you keep using it, it's high use.
But she will never unequip it.
So,
Okay, so-
here are some perks that we plan to hit soon that are low usage. Small game,
Soon.
cruel limits, any means necessary, slippery meat, vigil, this is not happening, and technician.
Oh.
All of these
Huh.
are things that we would like to do.
All of these
My
are
question
survivor
was,
perks.
can you
He
name
literally
one?
just
So
went
I'm
down
happy
a
to
list
hear
of
it.
survivor
so you've got
perks.
several there.
What about
There you
killer
go.
perks? Any killer perks you're looking at?
All
Oh,
right,
no, of course
so-
not.
That went pretty fast. Clip it.
Yeah. All right. So Luca Garden is asking, will commonly used survivor perk receive the same treatment? So, for example, we all know those decisive strike, borrowed time, adrenaline. I'm surprised
No.
this person didn't put self-care there.
Oh, that's true.
Self-care. Actually the most used survivor perk.
Yes. Way, by
Even
a lot.
after like
Even
last
after all the
summer.
stuff that happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sticks way off the edge of the graph
Yep.
in terms of usage. Some of these survivor perks, while they are quite common, were not used nearly as much as Ruin or self-care.
Horse
Decisive Strike
shit.
already got a serious cutback, so we're not actually that
No,
worried
decisive
about its power at
strike
the
got a
moment.
buff.
Though we do know, like we've heard and we understand the concerns, mainly the one about how if we're considering it to be an anti-tunneling tool, why is it that if they go off and do something, they still have a timer? We heard about
Yes,
it.
we have
know
heard
about
that.
it.
We are reading the forums. We
Yeah.
see those
We
discussions,
see it.
and we're
We have
we're
no plans to
considering that
change it.
internally.
But, you know,
But if you consider
see it.
borrowed time and adrenaline, they don't stick out as far in terms of usage as Ruin did. If you consider decisive strike, adrenaline, and borrowed time, life is actually used more than all three of those. So
Yes.
I
and
think you're
need to
telling me
remind-
live.
Yeah, I need to remind you guys that
Not telling the truth.
the game is on multiple platforms. The meta might not be exactly the same on each platform at each
yes,
level.
that's
Yeah.
true.
And when when you're looking at Light, well, Light is on a character that is free on console as well.
That's true.
So by definition, if it's a free perk, we might see a little bit more as well.
Yep.
Yep, that is true.
That doesn't mean that nothing will ever happen to these perks.
That's right.
It just means that it's not getting hit by the same initiative that Hex
No.
Ruin did.
No, Ruin just stuck out way.
every
too
single
far.
one of
Yeah.
those perks that she
And
named are
self-care
on
sticks
every
out as
single
much as
build
Ruin
that you
did,
will
but
ever
it's not as
see in a red
problematic.
ranked game.
It's not causing problems in
Right.
the game.
All right.
So they're, I don't know what the fuck their
Shinai?
their stats are looking at
Shinai
like
Shinai.
Thank
low
you.
level
I have no
survivors
idea.
to
That was
see
very good.
Will
you.
X Totem ever get
what
some
they're-
sort of respawn mechanic?
That's
they're
pretty
looking at
unlikely.
low level
The concept behind
low to
Hex
mid
perks
level
is that
survivor
they have
games where self care is used
huge
a lot.
punch. Like if you
They're
look
not
at,
looking at
Devour
top
Hope,
level play.
Yeah.
This thing lets
This
you
is just what
more
you're
into
telling
people.
you do
Yep.
things.
If we were to
insane.
make it so that hex totems could come back if they were easier to keep, then the power level on those corresponding perks would have to go down to compensate.
But they can just
Right.
keep
And
cleansing
we
the
like them
totems,
being
remember?
Okay. And how about, for example, okay, someone breaks your totem, and
Yeah.
as a killer, you take some time to go and set it back up somewhere on
It would
another.
have to be
totem.
quite a lot of time
Yeah.
to make it worth the amount of power you can get out of hex perks.
Like one day there's the killer version of Any Means Necessary, where you sit down and you put your totem back together piece by piece. It takes you a minute, and then you take out your little
No
lighter
break.
and you You turn the light back on. I don't know. Never say never, but it's not in the cards at the moment.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Dead Hard
Spicy
can
Top
be
Ramen
reused.
is asking, will there be
these
other
names?
generator slowdown perks in the future?
It's
Exhaustion
not
perks are super
impossible that we'll
powerful,
make
but
more.
they
of
can be
these.
reused.
This is kind of a long
Hex
answer. I'm
perks
gonna
are
have to
super
read
powerful,
this one.
but they
Sorry.
cannot.
However, we will be
be
very
reused.
careful about how they interact with others. We don't want sets of 4 perks that are slowdown to be meta anymore. For example, New Ruin doesn't have terrific synergy with Pop Goes the Weasel since it locks out the damage generator action. Only one provides value at a time. So going
Except
forward, we
that's
might find
inconsistent
other
because
interesting
with
ways to
surveillance,
generate
you
or
still
slowdown
have to
perks.
kick the generator
But
if
we
you're not
don't
running
want
Ruin.
these easy blanket things that can all synergize to make super slowdown builds.
Yeah, ideally, it would like there are other
don't want
things
the
we'd like to see
survivors to be
people do.
upset because they
The
can't
only
do
thing
things
people
as
ever doing is selling
fast.
generators.
There's
that's
no
a
problem with the gen
Ideally, we should
speeds.
see people bring in lots of different types of loadouts because there's tons of fun stuff you can do with perks.
Yep.
Like
Alright.
slow the game down.
So let's jump to
So you
doctor
can have a chance, but you
update
don't want that.
questions.
Sure.
There's a lot of
Doctor.
doctor questions
Yeah.
as well.
Yes.
The
So
bias
the whole
speak is
early
insane.
game thing, we don't really.
He
have a
listed
final
off an
answer
entire
on that,
list
you know,
of
that feedback from the
survivor
community.
perks
Well,
they
we-
intended
we
to look at
expect
and buff somehow
in the
because
first
they're not used as
couple
much.
minutes,
And
let's say
then
the first 2 or 3 minutes.
just completely just
2
put his phone
gens to be
down.
done,
Like, okay, I'm
maybe
done with my
that's
list.
sort of normal, especially on a larger map like Temple
I don't
of
care.
Purgation.
I don't care about
The
oh,
intention was
the
never
killer
for the
side
killer
where
to be able
they
to
have
keep all
unused
5
perks.
generators up for the first 4 minutes. It's just not what it was intended in the gameplay. So if you're having trouble on a map like Temple of Purgation, you see 2 generators way out there, maybe just let them go and protect the other 5.
Yeah, it's a strat. I know, there are some great killers out there producing content that may have some good tips.
That's true.
Check them out. We've got great ones. Some of them are fog whispers.
And most of them are saying your
Yes.
new ruin is shit.
All right. Let's change the subject
Sure.
to the doctor
Yeah.
update. So, Edis is asking, why does snapping
Guess we
out
don't
of it
listen to
reduce you
those.
to -1 now?
We don't listen to those.
When we were doing our tests with the static blast that guarantees a tier up, you would blast somebody, they'd be in tier 1, you'd blast them, they'd be in tier 2, blast them, they're in tier 3,
Yeah.
they snap out of it, they're in tier 2. You hit them once more, they're back in tier 3.
And the timing of it is also pretty suspect because you're going to get it's probably static blasted into tier 3, and then you're off finding somewhere safe, and then you're going to snap out of it. And by that point, there's maybe 15 seconds left before static blast is off cooldown. So it's very likely that you get into the situation where where you finished it, and then bam, you're going to get blasted back into tier 3 immediately. So yeah, that cycle wasn't great.
It wasn't fun.
Fun
So we
fact
fixed
about why
It
you went
wasn't
back
fun.
to
It
tier
wasn't
2
fun
and not tier
for the
1
survivors.
originally. It was actually because we were
I forgot
heavily
that the
inspired
killers
by
were
how
supposed to
Michael
make the
Myers
game
worked.
fun for
And we
people.
liked that that he
Thought they
had
were just
his
supposed to kill them.
special phase and then his alternating between tier 2 and tier 3,
Yes.
bouncing back and forth. And we were like, what if Survivor? Only once we did that, it wasn't as interesting as like Michael's progression of power and then cycling between tier 2 and tier 3. It was just kind of a weird way, actually, the way that Madness worked. In hindsight, at first I was really nervous about this change, but now that we have it, I'm like, oh, okay, no, I actually do kind of like it. Although we are super aware of people's complaints about how they feel like maybe it's not worth it to put somebody into tier 3, because then that means that they can easily put themselves back into tier 1, and if they only have effects that are active in tier 2 or 3, then they're like, oh no, I'll lose my effects that I put my add-on for. But as we know now, you're just going to blast them back into 2 very soon anyway, so
Yeah.
it's all good. Like now, I think it's way more
You're just gonna
dynamic.
do it
You're constantly
anyway,
climbing
guys.
and
I mean,
dropping and
come
climbing and
on.
dropping. I think it's more interesting that way.
And as with like all the new changes that came in
So
with
your-
the
your
mid-chapter
complaints are
update, we're
relevant
still going to
because
keep
you'll
an
just
eye
blast
on,
them back
you know,
into
like
2.
how people develop with this new doctor now.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome. Dustin is asking, is there any chance snap out of it to be considered healing again?
All right, we
That's
got a
so-
problem with that. If something is considered
be able to,
healing for the
like,
purposes of
What,
one perk,
botany out
for
of it or
example,
something
nurses
like that,
calling,
like
so
super
people
play.
with nurses calling would see you snapping out of it, then it's considered a healing action for all perks. And now botany knowledge allows you to slow it up. It can be slowed down by sloppy butcher.
it up.
Speed it up, slow it down.
It can be
Yes.
slowed down by coulrophobia.
Yeah.
A lot. So
Yeah, that
mm,
would be
it's
absolutely
50%,
awful.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think,
oof.
yeah, I think one of the catalysts to having us reclassify a whole bunch of things to not be healing was the introduction of chlorophobia. The introduction of mending. When Legion came out, and we were like, if we because mending is a lot like healing. I think mending is closer to healing than snap out of it is.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So if we call these like healing adjacent kind of things, they like feel a lot like healing. And I think we all had in our hearts the desire to let them be healing. It felt good. But the ramifications were not good, especially with stuff like coulrophobia. Imagine you're a Legion and you're like, well, mending is a healing. And here's a thing that makes it so that healing is going to take twice as long if I'm nearby. And that means mending is going to take twice as long. It was obvious that was going to be the meta. You'd never take this perk off. And so it actually had a step
You mean like
back
Dead
and take a
Hard,
look at the
Decisive
whole,
Strike,
what is healing, what is not
Adrenaline,
healing. You
Blithe,
had to
Sprint
restrict it to
Burst, those
specifically
things?
one thing.
Sort of
So
like
now
those things, right?
that would allow
Those
us the freedom to
things?
create things that affect
Hmm.
healing time without sort of unreasonably having knock-on effects on all
I'm
kinds
sure
of
you
other
don't
stuff.
see a single one of those as much as you
there
see
was this
Ruin.
other question actually about the snap
With
out
4
of it
survivors in a match,
priority.
none of
so
those show up as
Colonel
much as
Zilla
in 80%
is asking,
right?
why does snap out of it take priority over
Calling
mending?
horseshit.
And that's a feedback we received a lot.
Yep.
So we were wondering why.
Because it's meant to
The
stop you
snap
from
out of
doing
it
that kind
action
of
is
stuff.
meant to inhibit any charging action. So like
Jesus,
you can't
it's like I know.
repair a generator, you can't heal somebody else, you can't heal yourself. And so
All you have to do is
mending being a
psychologically.
charging action fell under that umbrella. We looked at how that worked because this question came up in the team early. We're like, should this lock this out or not? And the decision was that it should. What happens if you have a deep wound timer that's longer or shorter than the snap out of it timer? You're going to go down. That sounds kind of unfair, but it gives the killer the ability to stack these things and get some play out of it. We didn't think it was happening enough to make that change. We've seen a lot of feedback, so we are considering that maybe that's how we should do it. So
Maybe.
it's open for debate at the moment. We're
Or
still talking
considering
about
that
it.
you do it.
All right,
If
Freddy
it's too
Deadpool.
frustrating.
Could a survivor's madness tier be made more clear to the killer?
It's good. It's good.
That's an interesting suggestion.
That's perfectly fair. I think I've heard this
Killer's
question a few
more
times internally,
information.
too.
That's
We-
an
we have-
interesting suggestion.
Like it's
Nah.
there. It's on the status bar for the survivors, but you'd have to be some kind of like static whisperer to necessarily be able to discern like what level of madness is what level of static. I think it's mostly the 2 and 3 that are maybe a little bit too similar. I feel like if you see the level 1 static on the,
I feel
on
like
the
1 and
player's
2 are
profile,
more similar. 3's
Really?
got the really well-defined circle around
that's
Yeah.
fair.
it. It depends on how you look at the icon. Right?
Yeah, I think yeah, sure, it could be more clear. I don't think we can make any promises about that, but
Yeah, we're
we hear you.
considering it.
Yeah.
We'll make it more clear for the survivors,
So
sure.
yeah, thanks for the idea. As Nam 78, why was exhaustion removed from the doctor's add-on?
Well, we had a
Because
new
it
effect
wasn't
that we wanted to get to
fun.
the doctor, the
It
reverse
was
skill
frustrating
checks.
that
And we
doctor
looked
could
across
give
the other
them
afflictions that he had,
exhaustion.
and of all of them, exhaustion was the one we liked the least, so we traded it out. It was that simple.
Bam.
Can you
Called
name
it.
the 5 afflictions?
By heart?
Yeah.
Right
See,
now?
you got shaking.
No, what their names are.
Oh,
Oh,
the
no,
actual
I
name.
can't name the names. I know
Internal
what they do.
names.
Obedience, calm, discipline, restraint, and the other one.
Yes, the other one.
Oh my god. You don't know by heart everything that's in the game? Even all the numbers?
I just thought the joke would be that I was really confident, and then I finished with the other one.
Hello.
Move on. Next
We're-
question.
We're still
question.
laughing at that one. All right. I hate life is asking, and I hope you're okay, by the way. What was the motivation behind adding a cooldown to shock therapy?
Shock therapy already had a cooldown. If you played it on the PTB, you suddenly felt like, oh my god, what's this cooldown? It's because the cooldown was originally 1 second, and suddenly it was 3.
Cooldown was 2 seconds.
It was 2, sorry.
The cooldown was 2 seconds, but you had to switch stance.
Yeah. So we wanted to, we didn't want there to be no cooldown between
Yeah.
the shock therapy and hit. And when we changed that a bit, we changed it too much in
Yeah.
the PTB. We set it back, and now it's 1.5 seconds.
1.5 seconds. If you want to
1.5.
get super granular, and I know that some of you are like really granular out there, previous to this change, the doctor had a 2-second cooldown after shock therapy before they could do shock therapy again. But they could switch stance right away.
And
So
that was 1 second.
And that was
before you
1
could hit.
second. Exactly. So you could shock therapy, spend a second switching stance, and then go for the hit. So what we have now is actually in between, 1.5 between the 1 and the 2 seconds, although it's not quite as dramatic as that because when you take it into account like the amount of time, like you're not going to do a perfect 1 second switch. I don't know, maybe someone is out there, but like even there's like snap times and server latency and stuff that meant that it was probably going to be about 1.5 seconds before. So if anything, what really happened here is that the cooldown between shock therapies got shorter. That's
A little shorter.
A little shorter.
Well, yes. I'm guessing this question was asked like
Probably
having
due to the
PTB
PTB, yeah.
in mind.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we have a lot of maps question, and there is 15 minutes left, and then we have MISC
MISC.
questions.
MISC.
So let's go over the map questions, specifically on Larry's.
Wouldn't want to miss those questions.
Jackson Wise is asking, how was Larry's decided as the next map update? And since our map guy is not here right now, you're going to take over.
Yeah,
Jason?
so I've got some notes from the map guys, so I'm going to pretend to be Matt Walker for a little bit. Okay, so there's some notes here about how it's really helpful that it would coincide with the Doctor's rework, but the map team had their eyes on Larry's previously, for a while now. It's interesting. It was our first indoor map, and I remember having an interesting conversation with Matt about how this
is
might
one
be
thing
like
that
the
they
first
actually did really well. They knocked it
procedurally
out of the park.
generated
The
indoor
map team
map in a
knocked this one
multiplayer
out of the
game.
park.
We may have made history.
Honestly,
actually, well, keep that in mind. Put that in your
there's been-
notebooks.
I'm trying to think of another one.
Two things that have
Write this down
really
in your
made me
copybooks
happy and really
now.
made me disappointed with the
Okay,
maps.
so that was that.
in the
Anyway, we're
past,
really
like,
excited to see how
year
the
or so.
changes affect the kill rate,
Plagues
escape
map?
rate stats once it goes live.
Seriously disappointed me.
Yeah,
It's
looking
like they
forward
just we took one of our
All right,
forest maps
so
and we just
Phantom
put a big
Mask is asking,
temple
will
in it.
other maps be seeing change in the near future?
completely disappointed me.
Yes.
I was hoping to see a much more
So
interesting-
the map team is continuing their initiative to update maps and address map balance
Larry's.
issues. They are absolutely
away.
aware of the major culprits and are working to remove.
Those are the
This is a Matt
guy
word.
words.
We are working to remove the lamentable configurations from the entity's realm
Whoa.
forever.
the lamentable configurations. The lament configuration is the puzzle box in the Hellraiser series. So, is he dropping a hint that they might be working on something like Kirsty's house from the first movie? Or are they just saying that it's absolute hell for when these things pop up? Like, maps with infinites and stuff like that. Fun fact about maps, I have gone through 3 Haddonfields just today. 3 Haddonfields. Did very poorly because it's fucking Haddonfield. And each time, at least one of the survivors would say, I would have quit. I would have just DC'd when I saw the map pop up. That tells you how badly that map is designed. They need to turn that map off until they redesign it, not just bat them because it's got some issues.
So there's a lot of content to review, and they want to make sure that they do it right. So it may take a while to get all of the bad seeds. I think that's like a random,
if you get it right, when you have
pick
a building,
random, you pick
you
a
do
number
this.
to be the seed.
Yeah.
And then
Does
that,
it have
when
multiple
you run the
entrances
random
and exits?
procedural generator, it
If
will
yes,
always come up with the same thing from the same
do
seed.
not
Yeah.
give it windows.
Thank you for that joke, Matt.
Give it a front door
We
and a
appreciated
back
it.
door.
We appreciate
That's
All right.
it.
Ashley is asking, will the old version of the
Or
treatment
maybe
theater
one
still
window
exist?
on an upper floor that has one.
Sadly, no.
But not a back
all the
door,
assets have been completely
front
redone
door,
and replaced,
front
with
one or
one
two
exception.
first floor windows.
Moo the
multiple-
cow. We saved
floor
Moo the
windows.
cow. She's all right, and she's going to be staying with us.
All right.
You don't have to do that. That's fucking
Arceus
overkill.
is asking, was there
Hardcore.
ever plans to add a second floor to the treatment theater? Because from outside you can see that the building is kind of
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a
two-story
pretty-
high building.
That's a great question.
I was thinking that a while back.
Yeah, it's a really big and imposing, beautiful building from the outside. So the answer that Matt has left for us is that there already is a completely indoor 2-floor map, which is the game or the meatpacking plant, and there's already another indoor map with a whole lot of height variation, which is Hawkins. As anybody who's dropped through the hole can attest, you go from like quite high to quite low. Anyway, so to preserve the diversity, which has already been established, and they're going to keep Larry's as a mostly flat map. But there is a little enticing note here about perhaps visiting other floors of Larry's in future map releases.
If they
I can go with
keep the same
Alright.
quality in the map design
Idea
as they did in the
Mind
new
2000.
Larry's, I'd be
Is
perfectly
there
happy
any
with that.
chance that some of the totem spawn will be revisited? I think that's a hot topic with all these,
Yep.
exchanges.
Yeah.
I think it was
So
a
yeah,
day or
we
two
are continuing
yesterday. I
to
literally
the
spawned in,
initiative
and
to
to my
update
left,
maps
just sitting
and
there
address
was a
map
hex
balance
totem.
issues. The more
what
open
map was that
outdoor
on?
maps don't usually exhibit the signs of major
Can't remember.
imbalance, so they haven't been a priority. I
Red
assume
Forest.
this is more on the balance side. I think he may have
Yeah.
been not necessarily totems, but there's a note here. We're absolutely planning to better hide totems whenever we create a new map or update an old one. So in other words, yes, you've been heard. Totem spawns, and I'm sure that they've gotten feedback about like which are the totems that are problematic.
Like-
We've seen so many sad screenshots of just like a lit up totem right in the open, and everyone's like,
Yeah, like on the Asylum map.
yeah.
The one that's in the open.
Incoming thunderclap. It's coming.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Mamicha
Yep.
is asking, is a treatment theater bigger or smaller than before?
I
Yeah,
think it's bigger. Actually.
that's a really cool question.
One of the hallways
so
seems
the
longer.
map
like,
did not change
one
in
direction
overall
seems longer
size
now.
if you consider overall size being like the surface area or the number of tiles. Because for those who don't know how our maps are put together, and I think it's a fascinating topic, it's actually made up of 16 meter by 16 meter tiles in like a grid. And so it used to be essentially, the term written here, the technical term is a stubby rectangle, about 5 by 6. The map was changed to actually be a little bit longer. It's now a 4 by 7 map. This was done to make it easier for players to orient themselves in the map, because it used to be pretty easy to lose which direction you were going, like which was a long side and which was a short side. You couldn't tell.
That
So
makes
now
sense.
it's a little bit more easy to orient yourselves because there is a
the
long
same
and a
size,
short
it's
side
just
of the map.
one side shorter, and they extended it.
So there's a note here about if the base game doesn't change,
direction.
there is an initiative to reduce map size overall. So
Thank Christ.
That's a spicy thing. I think a lot of people wanted to hear that, actually. A lot of people say big maps are one of the main problems, and
They are. They're
we have definitely
huge
heard
problem.
that. The map guys are a little sad because it could lead to less map diversity, but it's easy to conclude
this
that
is
the
where
game
you
does
have
not
to start
scale
using
well
your
with respect to map
imagination,
size.
boys
Map
and
gets
girls.
too big, game doesn't work out so well. This is a game that you want to have people together and interacting rather than sort of alone doing their own thing.
All right.
We did it.
Yeah, we're at the
Right.
MISC
That's right.
part. So we have a couple of questions that were not really related to the new content or the change. So we're going to go over them really quickly. I'm going to try to wrap it up. We might just, push a little bit over 3 p.m. So
Can
we'll
we do
see
that?
until we get stopped, I
Wait,
guess.
That's
This is
illegal.
you
All right.
wasting the
So
time.
Spooky13 is asking, what was the artist part of this update? And I guess you can answer that one. but-
Ignoring user feedback.
Yeah,
and
no, it's like
backlash against
there's
Ruin and
suggestions here. What
implementing
was the
it
hardest
anyway.
part? Working the doctor, working Larry's, changing Ruin, dealing with backlash. It's a really cool question. I mean, I think it totally depends on who you're asking, right? A lot of people work on an update like this across all kinds of different departments. Like for me, the thing I spent by far the most amount of time was the technical rework of the doctor, because not only did we change how the power works, but we really dug deep into the guts of the character to update things, because we have a lot of knowledge and tools that we didn't have back then. So we get it running better and smoother. I don't know if there's a noticeable performance increase, but it's done using better methods now. It was a nice little cleanup.
Yeah,
So
so
that-
I haven't
so we're
played
not
the
really in
Doctor
a good
yet.
place to say
I really
what's
should.
the hardest, because
Yeah.
for each team it's very different.
Yeah. So
He
the
really
art
appeals to me.
team
He's a
spent I
very
don't know
Lovecraftian,
how long reworking all those
uh,
beautiful assets
character.
in
Making you
the
see
thing.
images
We have the level
and
designers who
imagine
redid the layout. We had the
For me, designing the Doctor took a lot longer than designing Ruin.
right.
No shit.
But because Ruin was so prominent,
Yeah.
there was a lot more concern about whether that change would be the right
Yeah.
one or not.
Discussion,
and when your
One's more
entire
work,
fucking,
one is
almost your
more
entire fucking player base,
concern,
every
so
single
it's-
one of your,
It's hard to say.
The amount of work
Every single one of
doesn't
your
necessarily
fog
match
whispers
the
said,
amount
"Don't
of
fucking
worry,
do this,
or how
this
much
Ruin
brain
is
space
shit.
it occupies isn't
Garbage.
necessarily related
You
to the
still
amount of work
did
that
it.
it took. So I guess the answer to this question is
giant
yes.
fucking backlash.
Yes.
People saying, don't, no, terrible.
All right, Lord Glint is asking,
I can't imagine
will
that it was that
anything be
difficult
done
of a
about the
decision.
hook tech?
Yep.
Yes.
So yes,
I guess maybe I shouldn't describe it in
No.
case you want to
let's not just make it even more.
For those who know what that is, you can know that it will be fixed. The fact that it wasn't fixed in the thing that just went out doesn't mean that we're condoning it or telling you to do it. It'll be fixed, so you guys can forget about it soon. It'll be over.
Yeah, we had a fix, but it turned out to be more complicated than we expected when the programmer was getting through it.
Right.
And then he came up and asked me, "Can this
Good,
go in the
because
next
it's kind
release?"
of a
We said,
garbage
"Sure."
thing.
And I want to stand
The
up
fact
for,
that it got
for one, because I saw
through
this,
the
this
PTV is
particular anecdote circling around, and it turned into like it was too hard
Not
to
quite
fix.
as amazing as
I'd be like,
Ruin.
no, our programmers are brilliant. The problem is that it's
Getting through.
risky, because
Yes.
it's a change to an underlying thing which might have knock-on effects, and we wouldn't want to accidentally affect something else inadvertently. So the idea is to hold on to it and test it more thoroughly.
Yes.
So more testing in order to have a definitive fix.
Exactly.
And without breaking other aspects of Survivors on Hooks.
Yeah.
All right. So the two next questions are kind of related a little bit about the PTB, but we're going to brush really quickly over it. So Lituanian is asking, has Dead Hard been changed on the PTB?
Yep.
And before we answer him, the next question, XGG Easy, was asking, why was moonwalking removed in the PTB? So both of these things were related. So if you want to just...
Yeah, so we tested some interesting technology on the PTB for motion extrapolation and just stuff that could really make movement feel better slash be better replicate. Essentially, make it so that people are where they look like they are, so that you don't get hits that look so bad and things like that on a dedicated server. We were testing out some cool tech for that on the PTB. It didn't go live, so I'm not even sure if these questions relate to like what's currently live.
It's not what's
Right.
currently live. However, there was a little bit of a feedback
Yeah.
about controls and the feel of the controls, which the team that is working on that specific feature is looking at the moment.
Yeah. So moonwalking. We didn't remove moonwalking. We don't
But
hate
would Dead
moonwalking.
Hard
It was just
actually
that with the
work?
feature that we were testing on the PTB, it changes a little bit
question.
of how your
Because
inputs
you can
are,
just Dead
are
Hard,
handled.
get
So
hit,
it just wasn't possible to do
be
it. Not because
exhausted,
we hate it. It was just it's a
and
side effect. of
still
it.
have
Okay,
Dead Hard
you
go
said
on.
it.
You
It
said
says
McLean
Dead Hard,
hates
it says
moonwalking.
exhausted.
You heard
and
it
you're just
here
like,
first.
It's because I can't do
None
it,
of
and
that
I'm really
actually
jealous of people who do it. I watch streamers and they hit like a fat moonwalk, like 10 seconds, and I'm like, damn, I wish I could do that. And if I can't do it, no one can do it.
Obviously, that's why. All right. Those are clips.
Those are-
right?
that's a clip.
Okay.
That's a clip.
Georgie T is asking, will other killers be receiving secondary powers? So the question was more elaborated than
Yep.
that, but that's pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah.
It's unlikely. We don't have plans for it, but you never know. I mean, the Doctor changed. We took static field. We moved it over to static blast.
Yeah.
And it just felt like the right thing to do. I mean, if we were looking at Wraith, his power is pretty straightforward. He can be invisible or not. Where would you put another ability? Maybe 6 months down the road, we'll say, hey, Wraith needs another ability.
You never know.
It's hard to say.
We have a whole button available that we didn't have prior to
Pig.
the pig. Speaking of which,
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Gabrielle,
What?
would you like to play a game? Happy birthday to the pig!
Oh, I thought they were going to announce who you were.
Yay!
So, Boop.
Boop,
Boop.
boop, go out there and
Boop.
boop a snoot for us,
Yeah.
for the pig.
I
hope
was
it's
so
not me or
hoping
I'll
they
hit
would
you.
announce who you
Yeah,
were.
this guy, he doesn't play around.
No fun allowed. All right.
I think I have a couple other questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Iridescent Gatekeeper is asking, are there plans to increase base generator regression? So we talked about base generator speed
No,
earlier.
because we
How
wouldn't
about
want
the
it to take
regression?
longer for the survivors to
The
actually
The chat is
do a
booping. It's
generator.
beautiful, by the way.
The current amount of regression seems good. The baseline,
Yep.
Ruin doubles it, and if you've played a few games like I have where Ruin stayed up the whole match, it's pretty painful. So I think we're happy with where the current base regression is.
Maybe there's room for other things that affect progression. Maybe Hex Ruin won't be the only thing in the game that affects the progression rate. Maybe. Don't quote me on that. Actually, forget that I ever said it.
Don't clip him on that.
I'm just saying anything is possible. Who knows?
Yes.
All right. Very good question by Cornhub.
Sorry, these names are great.
Can killers spawn closer to their X totem?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want that.
That's really tricky.
Yeah.
The procedural map generator picks
Whatever
the killer
side
and
of
then
the map
spawns
you're
the
on, you
survivors
just go
a
to the
certain
opposite
distance
side
away.
and know, okay,
and
the killer
where the
spawned over here,
survivors
I
are,
just
it
need to
tries to
look
put the
around
hex
in this area
or
and
the
get a
totem
hex
someplace
totem.
where the survivors can't see them. And once the totems are spawned, it chooses a random place for the hex totem. So putting it by the killer isn't really something that fits into that procedure very
Who
well.
knows? I mean, I would have to drag Matt back on here to see what he thinks about that. I wouldn't say it's a bad suggestion.
What if you've got
It is a bad
3 hex
suggestion.
perks?
Right.
wouldn't say
if you
it,
load
but
up
it
on the hex
is.
perks, eventually it doesn't matter if you're going to pick the ones close to you because they're all going to get lit up anyway. So
Well, it's a tricky one.
All right. Anyways, so following that on it, you're gonna talk to the map guys about it.
sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Demogorgon Ramsey. Seriously, you guys with the names.
Demo Gordon Ramsay.
When will the other killer receive a new chase music? So basically, we're doing as we go. When we do reworks,
The music
or
team's doing
when we
it,
come
doing
up
an
with
awesome
new
job
stuff,
too. That's
because
true.
we saw that you guys loved it. But other than that, I don't think we have anything else on the chase music.
Choo choo.
Nothing
Well,
specific.
actually, that's the other question after. Linoid is asking, what was the inspiration behind the Doctor's new chase music?
It sounds
And
like a
obviously,
bunch of
there's an angry
emergency
train
stuff,
noise joke
doesn't it?
out there.
Yeah.
But I
Like,
went to the sound
Sirens or
guys,
something like that.
and
Only
yes,
like
thanks.
screeching.
I went to the sound guys, and they
That's what it
basically
sounds
told
like to
me,
I don't understand people hearing the train.
you know, emergency sounds
Yeah.
and
Oh!
electricity.
Called it.
So you make
Well,
what
not the
you want out of
electricity,
it.
but
Yeah.
you know.
And finally, last
emergency
question
sounds I
for
call
today, and then we're gonna go over the announcements from earlier. E.g. Murder Main is asking, are the gatekeeper changes working out as intended?
We don't know yet because we've only got 2 days of data.
Yeah.
No.
So
because
as soon as we
gens get
have
done
enough
in 2
data to make a better
minutes.
decision on that, we'll let you know.
I have a little side note on that though.
Okay.
There's a little UI update that we wanted to do.
Oh yes, the text that explains how the gatekeeper emblem works is now incorrect. It's going to be updated on the hotfix, and the breakdown that tells you what you got your credit for at the end has forgotten to mention that you can get points for having the gates closed. That's wrapped into the generator defense number. So
Camera's
that
over
will all
here, dude.
become clearer after the 3.5.2
actually trying to look at this.
hotfix. Thank you for mentioning
I
that.
just noticed he's like looking
Alright,
off to the right.
So we went through, I
Or
think
actually
it's
straight
something
ahead
like 10 pages of questions.
this
So you
desk.
guys were very active on that Q&A.
Yeah.
We're gonna brush over the announcement again. Just remind for the known issue and the ongoing issues, and then we're gonna go and for the first time, I
Alright,
think
so this
over
is
the
done.
years, we're gonna.
So, essentially, they have survivor perks they want to buff because they're not being used enough. But, you know, no killer buffs. They don't care. They don't seem to actually care that Ruin got fucked over because they just shoved it out the door as it was. They didn't say, hey, we've got all these suggestions. Let's take some time. Maybe test some of these out. Oh my god. It's crazy. It's crazy. The only good thing that I heard is that they're acknowledging that their map designs are shit and that they're trying to take care of them one by one. Honestly, I would go an entire year. If they just said, give us 6 months, we're going to redo all the maps. We're getting rid of infinites. We're getting rid of, like, safe palette on safe palette, or completely redoing Haddonfield, then I would be happy. I'd be like, okay, I'll pay you for that update. Interesting Q&A. They just kind of took the softball questions. I guarantee you there were probably questions in there that were much more detailed, took in all the considerations, and they just kind of ignored those. Went for the easy ones. 10 pages worth of questions. I'm betting 25% of them were considered, and even then they took the softballs out of the softballs. But nothing that we didn't already know, other than the fact that they're looking to buff more survivor perks. Also the fact that they were like, oh, DS and dead hard DS and sprint burst and all this other stuff. These are nowhere near used in as many games as Ruin was. Clearly they don't play their game. I see devs and mods and saying, yeah, we play the game at home, we stream the game and stuff like that. Tell me one game. I want you to count 100 games. Be killer for 100 games and tell me the percentage. All you have to do is see one of those perks. Just one. Guarantee you it's 100%. It's gonna They're all going to be there in every single game. So you can't tell me that these perks aren't in every single game. There's 4 survivors at 16 perks, and you're going to tell me not one of these 16 perks is either Dead Hard, Decisive Strike, Sprint Burst, Adrenaline, anything like that. You're going to tell me that? I'm going to call bullshit. Gonna call bullshit. This was an entire Q&A to pat themselves on the back for the things that they did, and then just say, but don't worry, we're looking at the maps. We're gonna buff survivor perks, but we're looking at the maps. The maps aren't gonna get done anytime soon, but we are looking at them survivor perks. Those would probably be sooner. It's insane. I really don't know what the future of this game is going to be like with that kind of bias on their side. I mean, it's an incredible amount of bias. I don't know if they're actually aware that they're being biased when they say these things. I mean, Jesus, man. Oh. They really need someone to just come in and just like do a little hand to the neck symbol, like, nah, shut the fuck up while they're talking. Like, don't even answer that. Don't answer that, because if you answer that, you're gonna sound biased. I don't know, but yeah, that was the Q&A, the 3.5 Q&A. Apparently, there's a hotfix coming up. They don't want to say when, and they don't want to say what's in it, but there's a hotfix coming up, and apparently it'll fix things. But that was the video. I hope you all got some information that you wanted out of the Q&A. I hope you all have a great day. If you agreed with some of my opinions on what they were saying, if you don't agree, let me know in the comments. I'm more than happy to discuss things with I do my very best to actually do civil conversations. I try and answer, I think, almost every single one of my comments. I at least give some kind of answer, even if it's just a hey, thanks, or something like that. I do try and do that. But yeah, I hope you all have a great day, and as always, stay positive.